We've got a very fun topic today. Um, Leveraging mutual plans, obviously for the enterprise. And I guess I should. It's kind of like seeding it, like you're only supposed to use mutual plans for enterprise sales. That's obviously false. Many of our clients obviously are leveraging mutual plans for every single sale they do, and I encourage you to do it yourself. We've seen substantial benefits to these mutual plans, not only from an operational efficiency and being able to scale your organization, but also from a customer satisfaction, time to value. And I'll get into all of these. And some of you have been on previous webinars. You'll kind of know our style here is I'll do about 4 or 5 slides of education because on this call there's varying levels of knowledge related to mutual plans. And then I'm just going to go and share some actual use cases, about 3 or 4 different ways that we leverage them for our clients very effectively, ultimately helping them um, obviously be more successful in the onboarding of their clients. And I will pull out a couple of specific things that I think are the major differentiations of mutual plan. And I think one of those is it's mutual. Let's not forget that word, because a lot of times when we talk with people, we find out that their mutual plans are not mutual. And so we'll kind of go through that and how to really make that come to life in this complex world of onboarding clients. I will also preface these plans really work for any type of client deployment. So whether you're AKA deploying a SaaS software or you're deploying professional services, anything of that nature, these mutual plans work. They also work pretty well for cross-selling and also in many cases sales. So I look forward to walking through with you a couple of the different use cases. But as I mentioned, for some of you on this call, you might not be very familiar with what a mutual plan is. So 30,000 foot, let's just normalize what a mutual plan is. And so a mutual plan is clearly a mutual agreement. I'm going to keep pounding on that quite a bit, but a mutual agreement, right, between the two parties here. Now, assuming a lot of you are involved in the onboarding and implementation phases within your company, we can just go through kind of a classic experience. You have sales team, lots of SMEs, a lot of that kind of stuff, proposal, and that you guys achieve the win. And then there's that risky handoff, right, where you're handing that off to your teams, and then you have the actual onboarding experience and implementation around that. I will discuss on this call a little bit too. Is mutual plans are heavily used in the handoff process, also separate from the actual implementation phase 2, because a lot of companies lose their clients actually just in the handoff process, and we have some really good resources um, on our website and other presentations actually about that. If you're interested in that, just go to our resources tab there and you'll find some really good. Oh, sorry, get some feedback from somebody. Um, but I would recommend checking those out too in the handoff, and I will discuss that a little bit here today. But underlying kind of the 4 primary things of why you do mutual plans is to have shared goals, which again, shared and mutual. Clearly defining expectations and responsibilities, because that's also a gray area that as we are bringing new clients into our platform, Engage, and they're going to use Engage obviously to onboard their clients, there's a lot of gray area. There's a lot of not clearly defined who owns what, when, where. And so a lot of challenges with that. And so by having mutual plans, you really kind of unearth all those gray areas and get them out into the public, not public, but you know what I mean, out into the relationship and managing expectations there. And then third piece, obviously, is timelines and milestones, creating those benchmarks for growth and creating those benchmarks for getting somebody to be successful. Again, we have a wide varying types of companies on the call today. We work with extremely complex enterprise onboardings, might take a year and a half to onboard if it's like an infrastructure deployment, right? We also work with companies that are live in a month in their onboarding or even faster. So it can be different, but the underlying of having clarity and visibility around that is really what makes either one of those very successful. So again, as I go through these things, mind map it to your own organization as far as creating those timelines and milestones. And I'll talk about that a little bit also, because for a lot of our clients, it's just not a macro timeline and milestones. You might have varying milestones for different kinds of stakeholders, which I'm going to talk about here in a minute also, which is a very key thing when you think about mutual plans. It's not really one mutual plan, one size fits all. And a lot of times in many onboardings, many of our clients have multiple mutual action plans going at the same time for different departments that are going to be involved in it. I'll get into this a little more. But as you're thinking about this, it's really getting each of the critical stakeholders on point during that process. The last one, transparency. Again, these are kind of the overarching pieces of a mutual plan, is knowing what the hell is going on. So some of you on this call might be on the actual implementation side, and some of you might be from a management perspective, meaning you're overseeing a bunch of implementers. And this is not only on your side, do you want to have transparency and visibility as to what's going on, but so does the client, right, as they're being onboarded. Because again, some of you probably deal with this on a regular basis, is the original deal contract has been signed potentially with an executive team and a certain role of stakeholders, but then the actual deployment is with completely different people than the original contract holders. And so how do you keep them abreast, meaning the people who signed the line that was dotted, how do you keep them abreast of where things are at on the deployment also, right? So there's a lot of factors here. And again, a lot of it is about being very transparent, because the devil is in the details, and communication, collaboration, and visibility is a big part of making this successful overall. So if you're new to mutual plans, these are the things to be thinking about, and I'll talk about this more, but ultimately it's a combination of things and not just throwing everything in an Excel file and saying we have a plan. Okay, that's not a plan. That's just a document. Documents are worth nothing. Execution is king, and we're going to get into why that is so important. So mutual plans. I think you get it. If you want more just on the general side, of course, plenty of resources on the site. I'm going to get into now the why this is the challenge. So the big challenge in onboarding, again, some of you this might be boilerplate, meaning you know this, but some of you are just getting into this. Why onboarding is getting so complex is you have your team on the left-hand side. You're going to have anywhere from 3 to 8 people on that side, and the same thing on the implementation team on the client side, right? So you're going to have 3 to 8 people on both sides, and so there needs to be a clear, centralized, transparent experience to make sure everybody's on the same page throughout all of these different things that need to be achieved. Where it gets really challenging for people like us when we're onboarding the new clients is on the right-hand side, the client, you're not just dealing with one group of people. You might have people in 7 different departments, and they're heavily siloed, and it's hard to get in front of them. And so it becomes more and more challenging as you have to talk to the IT people on their side, or purchasing people, or other folks on the other side. And so it becomes really, really hard, because you're not only working with people, but they're all over the place, and you need to be able to have obviously a clear view into them and a clear way to communicate and collaborate on what you need from them and how to get what they provide you, obviously, to make the onboarding successful. So it's really, really important here, and really, really hard, right? I think it's a challenge that is easy to say, but to make it come to life, you're going to need some help, because it is that complicated. All right. So this is a big underlying piece of the challenge nowadays. And then how do you hold these people accountable, right? Ultimately, they're not your employees, but how do you hold this side of the equation accountable for getting your project, software, whatever it is you're deploying, out in an effective time? When are they really incentivized to do that? Is there visibility to their managers and leadership that they're falling behind? There's lots of ways here we're going to talk about. So how do you inspire this side of the equation to help you get your platform out? Okay. So that's a big challenge. We also see in some clients, the big challenge is this side of the equation didn't even know something new was coming. And some of you might be chuckling, but we have seen clients, and I'm not going to say anybody, but we have seen clients that the leadership team has bought something new and the actual onboarding team didn't even know it was coming. Not saying that's effective, but we do see that sometimes. So it can be sometimes a challenge even getting these people up to date as to what it is. We'll talk about that a little bit here in a second. So this is definitely a challenge. Obviously, lots of people, more problems, right? All of those things. So then let's get into kind of core components of a mutual plan, kind of taking the high level philosophy of a mutual plan and digging down here a little bit more. So obviously there needs to be a common goal, right? And then there needs to be obviously the key stakeholders. So I'll share a use case. We have multiple clients like this. Obviously, lots of clients that are like this. Is when they consider onboarding, it isn't just one mutual plan. They kind of look at their mutual plans based on roles. So let's pretend you're onboarding into a company, and I'll use an example here of like a SaaS company deploying into, you have a SaaS product and you're deploying it into your client. They really look at their mutual plans by the different roles of the client that they're onboarding into. So they have a mutual plan for the IT department. They have a mutual plan for the operations department. They have a mutual plan for different department heads because their software touches 2 or 3 different areas. So they have a general mutual plan, which is kind of the overall project, but then they have separate mutual plans for each one of the key stakeholders to keep them aware of what's going on, any resources they need, things of that nature. So when you think about mutual planning, it isn't a one size fits all. It's really about making the key stakeholders on the other side comfortable with the process, what you need from them to be successful, what resources you need from their people to be successful, and kind of carrying that out. It's a very key point. I have to stress that number 2 pretty heavily because that's how you create that visibility transparently. And then amazingly, people start getting you stuff on time. Amazingly, things start to change, right? Because you're creating that top down and bottom up visibility on that. So when you think about, again, mutual plans, it's not just start, end date, I need all this crap from you, we're successful. That's not how it works, right? There's a artistic way of getting this done, which means pulling out the stakeholders, same amount of information, but then getting them to the line much, much faster. All right. The next one is action steps, detailed lists. So this is another philosophy I like to share. Of course, I'm going to show it, but thinking about leveraging stakeholders, but then other stuff is a lot of the times when you're onboarding one of your clients, they don't know what they don't know. And you might have heard me if you listened to some other of our presentations. I bring that up a lot because there's a very strong inference that the customer knows what we need from them. So this should be pretty quick and easy to get from them. I'm making this up, but somebody's going to chuckle, right? Is like, oh, just get us your customer list. And you're thinking because in your company that takes 6 minutes to get, or you just go to Salesforce or something and you just get it. This client, it might take 6 weeks to get that client list, right? And so and it's true, like it happens. Like this happens all the time, right? And so it's really bringing all that to the front side of the equation and making sure they know what the needs are going to be and not just dripping stuff out to them slowly throughout the process so that if things are going to take longer to get or they can provision it, you're going to get a lot further down the road. Plus, they can't answer all your questions because they have no idea how your tool works a lot of the time or service or whatever you're delivering to them. And so you kind of have to coach them on what's possible, and then they can get you the information of what's possible. It's a real key point there. Next one is data collection and resources. So for almost every client, I don't know of a client where they're not collecting data and resources. So you have to have a mutual plan, but you also have to have ways to collaborate and move stuff back and forth very, very effectively, right? Same thing on the next one, communication and collaboration. I mean, communication for sure, and then collaborating on certain things is a very big component of this. Again, having that all centralized so you have that visibility. If you're managing through email now or your team is managing through email now, I think you know the frustrations. Gmail and Outlook were not run to run onboardings. Deadlines and milestones, kicking a horse here. Everybody knows about that. That's critical. Resources and dependencies, other tools they might need, obviously, to complete what they're doing. And I'll be candid because we talk about this all the time, is that a great mutual plan out the gate, because we have like templates in our platform. So most of our mutual plans cover 80% of the process because they're all templated. And then we also have templates for ad hoc because every client's different. So you have 80% kind of pretty rigidly templated, right? Because it's part of your process. It's a must have. It's not a nice to have. It has to happen. But then you also have to have all of these ad hoc things because every client is not the same. And so that's very important. And then for many of our clients, their mutual plans are different per like industry vertical they're going into. So if we have a mutual plan for a healthcare client type, that's going to be different than a mutual plan for a a manufacturing type client too, right? So you can see here, mutual plans are not just, oh, one thing, one size fits all, there you go. For really operational success and really knocking it out of the park, these mutual plans you have to consider role based and then also vertical. And then, of course, logically, if the service you're deploying is different, then you might have different ones for your services. So you can see how these independent pieces kind of can all come together there. All right. Giving you a lot here, but these are already probably quite a few notes have been taken already because these are the building blocks for success. They are the ways that you can then standardize your onboarding experience, scale your onboarding experience, and measure the success of your onboarding experience because you're taking them through what feels like bespoke experiences, but they are not underlying. They're all just using your templates, your processes, repeatable, and measurement around this. And it's highly two-way. This isn't about your team in this case. It's about 50% your team and 50% on the client for success. All right. So, and as I mentioned at the top of the meeting, I'm going to show about one more slide, and then I'm just going to go through some real ones to bring this to life for you, because obviously we have clients that leverage our platform in hundreds of different ways, enterprise multi-location deployments. I mean, you name it. So there's a whole lot of variables here, but I want to just kind of show you so you can start to mind map to yourself areas of improvement that you and your teams can be working in, but also how do you do this at scale? Many of you have young or emerging onboarding or implementation specialists. So how do you tee them up for success? A lot of that comes to having repeatable, measurable, scalable, templated experiences, again, that feel customized, but are all from the bank of highly approved ways of engaging. So benefits, again, number wise, we see about 45% more engagement from the clients on the mutual plan experience and driving that forward. Efficiency, 30% plus on your side. So meaning time on task, everything dramatically cut because of obviously building out those templates, building out those experiences, automating a lot of these things with our workflows and other things underneath our tool. But ultimately, it creates a tremendous amount of efficiency for you guys there. So again, clarity. We're seeing positives on all of these. Obviously, we wouldn't be as successful as we are if not. But these are more thinking about from your purview. If right now you're basically doing this through spreadsheets, or we have a lot of clients, switching from like Excel to us, or Jira, or Smart Sheets, tons of clients kind of coming from simple, more internal facing types of tool sets and really leaning heavily into our side because of the mutual concept, as I talked about at the beginning. True onboarding is a mutual experience and driving that all inside one centralized ecosystem. So the benefits are substantial to your teams. And then, of course, obviously, to your customers, right? So at the end of the day, yeah, it's great that we're more efficient. Yeah, that's all good. Time to value is quicker. Those are all great things for us as on the business side of the transaction. But what is most important for value of the enterprise is that the clients that you have onboarded are happier. They're seeing value from your time to value. They're seeing value from your solution faster. All these types of things, which are mission critical. And we've done plenty of other presentations that you can check out around those concepts that completely change your bottom line, your team's bottom line as you look to get more budget. These are all real outcomes that need to be considered. So 30,000 foot, these are mutual plans, the reason why behind mutual plans. And I'm going to jump out now and just kind of walk through a couple just to kind of, again, bring some of these things to life, because a lot of times people can hear about stuff, but they really don't know what that can be. So I should be sharing. Let me just double check my screen here, so I don't show everybody a picture of my wife and dog for the next 20 minutes, which, would be great. I think a lot of you would be okay with that, but there we go. So, okay. So off record or on record, this is our platform Engage. Of course, you guys signed up for the event. So I think you know about Engage. We provide a solution that is purpose built for onboarding. And our big point is our workspaces. What you see here are all internal facing to your team, and then of course external facing to the customer substantially to kind of guide through the process here. So the one I pulled up here is just kind of on the left hand side here. I just, for today's purposes, have 4 different phases of an onboarding process. This is all customizable and all that kind of stuff, but for the purposes of helping bring concepts to life for you guys, I structured it this way. And so these are just handoff and kickoff, deployment and install. We have a ton of clients that have that tricky little thing of, oh, we got to send people on-prem to do stuff, right? And then training and go live, which is like user ramp up, things of that nature. And then post-launch, some concepts there that we leverage accordingly. So this is what we call a mutual plan. This is, again, just a sample, but you can see kind of for a typical onboarding experience, all of this is customizable to your own use cases. But again, this is client facing and of course internal. Bonus, just since we're all here, if you're a Salesforce or HubSpot user, all of this also shows up inside your CRM, which is great for your teams. Super benefit. Not really about today's call, but why not show it to you? It's an unbelievable way to keep everybody in your team and all the data and everything all organized. It's some huge benefit to a lot of our clients. But back to, this is what we call a checklist, okay? And so in here, you have all these different checklist items. And again, going back, memory back to what we just discussed, you need to consider some of this maybe by role, obviously by product line and or by what vertical. So as I mentioned, we have libraries around this. So all of these are automatically created for your team. And so then from in here, you're then working with the client to kind of guide them through what are the expectations of this onboarding experience. Like we have a lot of clients that do pilots, right? I'm assuming many of you, do initial pilot launches or phase launches, all sorts of things to consider, which of course could also have additional mutual plans for each one of those objectives, right? So think of a mutual plan, and again, it's not overarching and it covers everything. It's for a specific objective that you want to achieve, okay? And that's when you get down to that objective level, that allows it to be kind of more specific and help drive across a specific strategy. So how we take that to the next level for our clients and where the rubber really hits the road is, for us, it's not just about having items to do, it's the entire experience around that. So I'm just going to dig into one of these here. And again, this is just a sample. But when you're inside a mutual plan, and this is one objective, right? You have obviously what your purposes are, the agenda. You might have things you need them to download for homework. You have process resources. Inside our platform, you can relate this to any other resources inside the tool. And then, of course, we bifurcate things out into additional tasks that might have to be done by your team to execute, meaning internal tasks, and of course, a tremendous amount of tasking to the external customer too. So we're able to hold them accountable, right? So again, in a mutual plan, a lot of times onboarding and implementation teams have a hard time holding somebody accountable because there never was an agreement of accountability. It was never mutual. It was just pushed on them. And then when Tiffany and Tommy don't deliver, they're like, well, I never agreed to that, or you just told me that. I didn't say I could get that done by then, right? And so when you think about each one of these items, there's a goal, there's the objective, and then who's going to do it, what, when, and where. And of course, behind the scenes, we're doing a ton of workflow and automations to remind people and kind of drive them to success. Okay. Of course, we have centralized commenting too, and all sorts of things to really help drive this along. So as you're thinking about your own mutual plans, think of these items as being kind of little independent objectives, and what you want your team to do and what you want the client's team to do. Of course, they're agreeing to this during that journey, right? And then that's each one of your items. So here it's strategy and framework. You have configuration and training, right? Approval and launch. You guys know. I mean, you break these out into specific objectives, and each one can guide them to success officially, just like I was just showing you there. So that's a real critical part of this. Again, centralized, specific, accountable, and then of course a ton of automations and workflow to remind, escalate up if somebody's off, right? All of these types of things where if you know this is due on this date and they haven't even gotten in yet, it creates an alert. Alert is a yellow. Yellow means call them, find out what's going on, right? Being proactive. It's too late when people miss deadlines. It's too late. That's not a winning strategy, right? It's about getting them before they fail and helping the customer win because it's in your benefit. Okay. So these are what when we talk about mutual plans, this is where success lies in mutual planning. Little operational targeted elements to drive across people to success on the critical needs of this. For instance, there's many in here. I don't know if I have one on this screen here, but there's like have the client upload data, right? A big problem that we have with a ton of clients is they ask the client for information. The client emails them back the information. Nobody looks at it. Nobody looks at the data. And then the day it's needed, they open up the Excel file and realize it's jack. It's crap, right? And so in here, we have workflow processes. When data is uploaded, it's pending. Your team has to review it, then mark it as approved, and then move on, right? Processes like that are critical to keeping everything on time. And of course, this is multi-threading, right? You're not linearly doing anything. You're driving the client in multiple ways and multiple paths, again, like we were talking about earlier with roles or other opportunities in that. It's very simple to set these up too, because you really are doing this now. You're thinking about it now. You just haven't systematized it to success. And that's what we help our clients do with obviously Engage. So as I mentioned, basically this example here is kind of a prototypical, kind of onboarding experience, kind of high level. We do have a tremendous amount of clients that want to get into like this ecosystem of stuff where you might have, some of you might have, we have another webinar about multi-location deployment. So if your product has anything that is on-prem stuff, we just onboarded a new client itself that they had problems with their people going to installs and the clients weren't ready, et cetera, et cetera. So it was costing them a ton of money and problems. So we see mutual plans also heavily used in circumstances like this, or capturing photos, warranty information too. Very, very popular kind of experiences. So again, these mutual plans are leveraged by our clients in many different operational capacities that they want to achieve, have measurement and reporting against to become efficient. So this on-prem install stuff, very, very critical for a lot of our clients. We also see a tremendous amount of, if anybody on the call has some software or anything like that, we have a tremendous amount of user onboarding checklists or mutual plans. And so this mutual plan is actually ours when clients, because we're fully integrated with Slack and Teams and your calendar and all sorts of stuff, so that when clients do stuff, you're getting messaging everywhere, which is obviously awesome for that connected experience. But we also drink our own Kool-Aid and use this for onboarding users. So a lot of our clients also use these mutual plans in the onboarding of the users so that there's a structured, clear way of making sure they're clearing the milestones needed to kind of get across the line there. All right. I did forget one thing earlier when I was talking about in the handoff and client experience. Obviously, we have a tremendous amount of file sharing inside of the platform, and all the checklist items do file sharing. But we also have a lot of clients that want to use our forms infrastructure. So inside those checklist items for your mutual plan, a lot of times you are collecting data, but sometimes you want to collect it in a more structured manner. You don't just want the client uploading a document or an Excel file. You actually want them to fill out something so that you can validate the data and clean the data more. Because a big problem, I kind of alluded to it earlier on mutual plans, is GIGO, garbage in, garbage out. And so we have many ways of leveraging these forms to help clean up that process also in your mutual plan so that you have much cleaner data. And of course, obviously makes the process, go extremely faster. And then kind of carrying that out inside, you got your original, obviously you got your deployment or install. We talked about training use cases for mutual plans or rep sign up. And then we also, this one I kept it out, but a lot of our partners, of course, are doing onboard satisfaction. So you can a lot of clients also have mutual plans on that, where it's the last item on the checklist is really about satisfaction. So you're kind of tying all of those together inside one ecosystem so that, again, you have full visibility and management across everything. So as you can see from the earlier part of kind of how you want to structure your mutual plans, again, maybe by role, by product, by vertical. And then within that, you're going to deploy it in an environment that provides 100% visibility and collaboration between your team and the external team, because it's, again, 50-50 process there. And then by having that information in an actionable environment, you can be proactive in driving the relationships and hitting those mutually agreed upon dates and times and everything, and then carrying that all the way through, obviously, to a successful launch. And so 30,000 foot, again, presentation was around enterprise. Clearly, we have tons of enterprise people selling in the enterprise, but we also have tons of clients who are selling into mid-cap small business. It's basically about systematizing your desired onboarding experience, but then opening that up to be mutually agreed upon between you and the clients. And I'm not joking. Well, like, we have a lot of clients that this right here, this mutual plan, the first meeting they have with the client for the kickoff call is literally walking through this and adjusting this based on that, and then locking down and getting commitment on it and the staffing and the resources to get it there. So it creates that consistency of engagement and conversation to make sure you're winning. So they're very, very powerful, these mutual plans, when deployed, used, obviously, and managed against. So I appreciate everybody's time. Obviously, you want to discuss this more. I offer this up on every single one, and many of you take advantage of it. To do a brainstorm, like if you have a certain type of environment or challenge that you have, that's my email address right there, Joey. And I can brainstorm with you on your environment, because sometimes just figuring out is the best approach by role, by product, by vertical, or some's their combination of it, or 80% this to that. And we can help guide you on that. Obviously, we would love to have you use our platform, but at the end of the day, it's about winning. And so if you have any questions or challenges around that, no problems. That literally will be my calendar. I'll send you my personal calendar, and we can just brainstorm ideas there. But I will say, we have literally transformed organizations by deploying mutual plans in a way that is an actionable mutual plan and accountable mutual plan. Again, the proof is in the performance, right? The proof is in the execution. That's when you win. And I will say, we work with a lot of like venture-backed groups too that are scaling. And so if your group is highly growing, plugging new talent into a proven high recipe environment really helps with that scaling and quality of service in that side there. So again, small business to large business, we don't care. Our licensing supports all sizes. We'd love to talk with you and help you kind of bring these mutual plans to life for you and your team. So I appreciate the time today. I appreciate everybody coming in on the mid-holiday cycle here, and hopefully everybody has a fruitful start to their new year. So I appreciate everybody's time today. Thank you.